Hey guys, welcome to our first episode of Just Because, where we interview all of your favorite teachers. Just because. My name is Gabby, and today we're here with Mr. Jolly.
Hello there.
So before we get into this interview, what grades and what subjects do you teach?
This year I teach 6th grade and 8th grade history.
All right. And now for the actual interview. So how did you start teaching?
I got into teaching, I'd say, maybe 12 years ago, starting off at church, doing Sunday school, and I kind of got that bug. I was like, I think I might want to teach. Then that required me to go back to school because I didn't have any type of degree. So I went back to school pretty late in life. I was in my late 30s. And I went back to FIU for my degree in history and education. And it was pretty life-changing because I got to work at a museum on 2 exhibits. I did a whole research project in the Honors College at FIU. I gave, I did not speeches, but I did like presentations. I taught, it would be me and like 4 doctors, like people with PhDs on the board, and I'm here talking with them. And that was just the opportunities that I got. And then it really formed the way I wanted to teach because it showed me that teaching didn't just have to be, everyone sitting in rows and just doing workbook stuff. Like there's a whole bunch of other stuff that could be done that fosters learning. And that's what I got from my time at FIU. And that's why I say it was life-changing, because before I was like, okay, I'm going to teach. It's going to be like Sunday school. We're just going to sit around and I'm going to talk. And then what they teach you is like, the person who's talking is the one who's learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the idea is to empower the kids to do the talking.
That's why you say like it's not just A, B, C, or D on a test. It's actually like applying it.
Yes.
All right. So do you enjoy teaching history?
I love it. I love history. I love teaching history. I love especially when things change or when new information comes out. And I think I talked about that when you guys were in 6th grade. There's a new edition on that book, and even the new edition would talk about like stuff in history, like Greek fire, like how they make it. They don't really know. But then in the years since that book's been published, information's come out where they think that, hey, maybe like Mythbusters did an episode on it. And like, I like being able to share that with kids and be like, look what your book says. Like, they don't know how to do it. But now there's people that are experimenting and trying to figure out, and they think they kind of figured out. And then we watched a video of them actually doing using an ancient like pump to shoot out a substance that'll burn on water, and kids find that interesting.
Yeah. So what are some things that you do when you're not teaching?
Right now, coach football. When football's not in season, it depends on the month. So I pretty much have off from November to maybe January. Football season for a coach starts pretty much in February or March. There's a lot of stuff to do. But in those months, other than that, I'm, just hanging out, playing video games. I still like doing that. And then a lot of times I'm still going to football clinics and reading football books and things like that. And that was another thing that came about from me teaching here, was getting into coaching. I never thought I'd be coaching football either. So that's kind of like what I do. I know that's kind of lame response, but other than football, video games, hanging out with my kids, hanging out with my wife, there's not a lot of time to do much else.
Teaching.
Yes, teaching, grading, and all that stuff.
Grading, everything. Yes. So obviously I know the answer, but like, what is your obsession? What's something, a movie character, like you collect anything, hobbies, TV shows, something you're obsessed with? Okay,
so the easy one is Star Wars, obviously. I'm known for that. And again, when you guys were in 6th grade, that's going back like 3 years now, just about. And at that point, I was definitive. Like, my favorite character from Star Wars was Qui-Gon Jinn. I liked the way that he was a Jedi, and in the middle of this crazy fight, there's a moment where they can't fight because there's this energy shield pops up between him and the enemy, and you just see him there like kneel down and start meditating, like getting calm and getting serene. And I always looked up to that because that's something that I would like to be able to do, is to be like, oh, things are going crazy. Let me breathe and let me get serene. Let me get my head right before we have to go back in there and fight again. So I always liked him. But then a couple years ago, The Mandalorian came out, and I have to say that The Mandalorian is my favorite character, Din Djarin. So I'm obsessed with him. That whole storyline, I love it. It's for me, it's really a positive light. It shines a positive light on fathers and male figures that are in a fatherly role. Maybe not even naturally, because they're two totally different races, but he takes care of, Baby Yoda as a father. And I'm just drawn to that, because a lot of stuff these days, the father's always portrayed as like a fool, or he's like the butt of jokes, and he doesn't know what's going on. And it's tiresome. And it was good to see, like, this is a guy that will defend his son and will go all out for it. So I'm drawn to that story, and that's my new obsession with Star Wars. Another thing that I really enjoy is Lord of the Rings. I love that whole universe. I'm fascinated with the fact that Tolkien created all that stuff and how intricate it was. Like, he created a language, and he was obsessed with history, and there's a lot of history in that book. So
you can use that to teach history.
Yep. And if you remember that, my sixth graders know I used Lord of the Rings the first week of school to show artifacts, written records, and traditions. Yeah. I use those clips from that movie.
Yeah, that's like perfect, because it like connects to what you teach.
Yeah.
So what is your like daily schedule?
Daily schedule, if it's a weekday, so I wake up and I try and do a power walk about a mile and a half. As I've gotten older, I have a problem with my knee, and I find it hard to run. I used to run. It's too painful. So I'll do a power walk. I got that idea from Mr. Ardois, and it really works, because, you build, you're still sweating, you're still getting your heart rate up, but it's not, you don't have that rough effect on your knees. I can't remember the impact on your knees. So I'll try and do that. Then I'll take a shower. Then I'll get ready, and I'll go to work, teach all day. And then right now it's go to football practice, get home, shower, have dinner. If I got something to grade, I'll do that. And then I try and be done with everything by 8:30, 9, and I turn everything off, and then I just hang out for a couple hours before bed.
So what time do you wake up, and what time do you go to sleep around? So
sleep 11:30, sometimes 12. It's rough. And then I'll wake up at 5:45, 5:30.
Okay.
On Saturday, I have a men's Bible study, and I get to stay in, because that doesn't start till 7. So I get to wake up at like 6:50, and I just roll out of bed, put my shoes on, and go.
So you have to wake up early every day.
Yeah.
Much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but it's better, because I've learned that if I do that thing where, I'm gonna sleep in this day, it makes it rough the next day. As I've gotten older, like when I was your guys' age, I didn't have a problem with that. But now it's like, if I do that, I'm like, I'm dead the next day.
Your body gets used to waking up early.
Yeah. So as long as I keep doing it, I'm okay. But if I cheat, I pay for it.
Okay, so what's the best joke you've ever heard?
Okay, so have you ever heard of Louis Anderson?
I have not.
All right, so he passed away maybe a year ago or something like that, fairly recently, and he was like this chubby comedian, and he had like this unique voice, and he was known as a relatively clean comedian. Like, there wasn't hardly any cursing in his acts. And and so they would show it on like network TV, and especially back in the 80s, you couldn't curse on network TV at all. So in order to get on network TV, you had to have clean material. So I remember watching him on like Channel 10 or something like that, ABC, and his whole thing, he's going into this whole routine. And if you've ever watched comedy specials, sometimes they'll have a joke that keeps propping or coming up throughout the hour that they're talking. And I like those types of stories where they'll set the seed of the joke, and they'll keep popping up throughout the hour. So on that one, he was talking about, he says, I wish I had a gun that could kill people for 10 minutes, not forever, just to shut them up for 10 minutes. So he would go around, and he would and every once in a while he would talk about something and said bang, and he would like whoever he's talking about, bang. It's like they're dead for 10 minutes. That was what it was. So then it gets towards the end of the special or whatever, and I think he's talking about people who talking during the movies, and he's like bang, and then he pauses and he goes bang. I don't want to see you for 20 minutes. And it was, I don't know. I was just always, it's stupid, but it was a clean way. And it's kind of like morbid in a way, but it was just funny because it's like, no, you're talking in the theater. I don't want to hear from you for 20 minutes. So that's not the funniest joke, but that's the one that came to mind. Because a lot of, you know me, I can say some cringy stuff and it's not funny, but it's like, it makes me laugh, but only because I know that it's making all you guys' eyes roll. So I don't want to go there.
Yeah, but like that's changed a lot from today. Like,
yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, okay.
So what is your dream accomplishment? Like something that won't necessarily happen, but you'd be like super happy if it did.
Super happy. Okay, so I guess. So when I was at FIU and I was working with, I got really into that stuff at the museum, and I had what they call a mentor, and I worked alongside him at the museum for 8 months. So I did research at the museum, getting to work with all sorts of artifacts and written records and stuff. I did that for 4 months, and then he helped me write a paper, right? And it was one of the biggest accomplishments of my life because it was like a 72-page paper. And if you would have told me I was going to write a 72-page paper when I was in high school, I would have laughed because I hated school. And I definitely didn't like to write, but this was it just flowed. And I was just talking about stuff that I was researching, and it was so easy. And he said, you could take this paper and expand on it, and you should really look into getting your PhD. And I'd never even thought about that. And we still correspond every once in a while. He says, it's still here. The only thing is that, it's money, it's time. And I guess I just haven't figured out how to work that into my schedule that we talked about, because it would mean something would have to go. And I guess I'm not ready to give up coaching yet. I'm not ready to, I still have kids at home and things like that. So yeah. I don't think I'm ready to put forth that kind of effort, or at least I haven't figured out how to do it, because a history PhD, there's a lot of writing. Like everything is writing. There's no test. There's no, everything's a project, and there's a lot of writing. And not to downplay any other PhDs or advanced degrees, but like your literature and your history and your language, like those things are like some of the few academic degrees that are left, like where you're really pushed to produce something in your own words. Like a lot of other stuff, you don't have to do as much writing. Like my daughter just got her master's, and she didn't have to do nearly as much writing as she had to do. She minored in history, and she said getting her master's was easier than her minor in history, because you write a lot in history, and you gotta be ready for that, So I'm not ready for that.
So when you say you didn't like school, did you like not like anything, or did you like history while you were in school? I
liked history, but okay. So when you were talking about the 80s and early 90s, and school back then was Rose, and history was you walk in and the guy turned on the overhead projector and there's a million notes, and you just copied the notes and you studied. That was history. So I didn't like that. I liked watching, videos like on TV, like documentaries, and I liked reading my own books that me and my dad would have. So I loved history, but even history at that time was not fun. Nothing was fun. The only thing that was fun was I took criminal justice in high school, and I thought I was going to do that as a career, but I ended up not doing that. I went and I did that in college for a little bit, but then I stopped because I didn't want to do that for a living. But the whole thing of criminal justice was interesting. And then one year, my 11th grade teacher in language arts, that was amazing. I don't even remember the guy's name, but we went over the Canterbury Tales, Macbeth, and the way he did it, this was like regular English. And so it's not like we were like, no one cared about being in English. Like it was like that type of thing. Like it was tough to get a bunch of 16, 17-year-olds to care about Macbeth and Canterbury Tales. And he did a great job. And I'll never forget that because it was so interesting and so fun. Again, probably because there's like a historical aspect of it. And in the Canterbury Tales, I'll never forget this, is like there's a lot of these little stories that help talk about medieval England at the time. So you have like the priest's tale. So, but that's like a viewpoint of a priest who's like kind of rich and working in the church, and he's wearing like fine clothes, and he's kind of like a hypocrite. And then there's the friar, the guy that walks around with like sandals and a sackcloth, and he's got a rope for a belt, and he's poor, but he's a real man of God, and he's out in the streets with the real people, like with the poor people. So it was like a thing. I was like, man, this is amazing. And then there's one called the Squire's Tale, and it doesn't get finished because the squire is like he's like the servant of the knight. Everyone wants to hear about the knight's exploits, and it's all like made up. It's like not good or interesting. And the squire's got this awesome like fairy tale that he's selling, and every time he tries to tell it, he gets interrupted, so he never gets to finish it. But I was like, man, I'd like to know what the rest of that story was. So, and he that teacher encouraged us to like finish the story. So
you guys got to make your own ending?
Yes.
Cool.
And I don't remember what I put, but I remember that in particular was cool. So I like that kind of stuff, but a lot of stuff was, I couldn't focus because if you have me in my class, it's like, if there's more than one person talking to me, I don't do well with that. So I think I had a lot of focus issues, I guess, because I couldn't grasp mathematical concepts. And then history was boring. Language was boring. Chemistry was boring. So.
But yeah, you figured out a way to learn.
Yes. But that a lot of that came, I didn't realize that until I went back to college in my 30s. Like, and when I went back there and I was taking that class with that guy that I said was my mentor, that when you get the syllabus, no tests, no quizzes, 3 papers. That's what you're going to do for 4 months is 3 papers. I was like, oh Lord. And then it ended up being the best thing. Like I was like, okay, I'm in control of my destiny. I'm going to research this. I'm going to write what I have to say about this. I'm going to do my thing. And it was empowering. Whereas before it was like, here, write this stuff down and then memorize it. What happens if you can't memorize? What happens if you're busy? What's happening if you're having a bad day and you're just not in the right mindset to memorize 50 things? Well, they were telling you, well, you're not smart,
Yeah.
Because you don't have a good memory. And that's one of the things that I took into my view of teaching is like, let's take away the memorization aspect of it as much as possible. Give these kids a chance to at least articulate what they've learned. Even if it's like, okay, I kind of understand what you're saying. And they tell you pretty good, but they just don't remember the name. That's cool because a lot of people struggle with names. Like I got 2 coaches out there that they coach, who's this? They're bad with names. And if you're bad with names and you have to memorize names for a history, you're in trouble. But if you could talk about what they did, and then you can look it up in the book, you can look it up on your phone, you can look it up on your computer. Then the idea of memorizing is intelligence is not true. And when I was in school, it was like, if you could memorize, you were doing well.
Yeah. And it's not actually applying it because you could just memorize it and then forget it later.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that is unfortunate. Like when you see a kid like do well on a test and they all they did was memorize it, and then that is a challenge for me as a teacher. Is like, okay, I got to try and figure out a better way to ask some better questions that forces them to really internalize. So instead of like memorizing stuff about Athens and Sparta, now I literally go out of my way to say, where would you rather live, Athens or Sparta? And then they have to answer it that way, and you get a better sense of what they know by that question than having them do a matching section with a word bank,
Yeah.
And even kids that don't have good memories, they know like, oh, I like Sparta. Those are the warriors, and they got to go to school to fight and blah, blah. There's kids out that'll remember that. But if you tell them, hey, memorize all these terms, they can't do it.
Exactly.
But they can tell you all about Sparta.
They can apply it to
Yes.
better than they can memorize.
Yes.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you think so.
So
I think I rambled on that one.
So I guess what's your favorite sport?
Football.
Yeah,
Football?
I thought so.
I played baseball, but as I got older, I didn't realize it that I think it was my eyesight because I played softball. Like I couldn't hit anything as I got older. As the boys got older and they could throw faster, I was having problems connecting with the ball. And then even in softball, I wasn't having even that's a big ball and I couldn't do it. But then when I got contacts, I was able to play softball again, and I could keep my eye on the ball and things like that. So I think it was a combination of bad eyesight, and then just, I just wasn't meant to play baseball because I couldn't see the ball. Like by the time I see it, it's too late. And you played softball, and it's like, you have half a second to
exactly
to get that going. So
you say football?
Yeah. Because that's something that I could do without good eyesight. It's like, hey, line up and hit that guy. Cool, I'm down.
Okay, so what was your dream job in, like, when you were younger, like middle school, high school?
So middle school, I can't even let me think. Okay, so in middle school, me and a couple of friends, we learned programming called Basic A, and it was like, it's a rudimentary programming language. Like obviously not used anymore, but it was like 10 go to 20, and then you could program stuff. So we programmed little games, like text games, and then pictures that we drew on the computer would pop up every once in a while. And we made a couple games that were functional, and we thought, oh, that'd be awesome to make games. And we really tried to really get good at this programming. And then I realized the same for me, because there's a lot of math involved, and then I was getting confused. So that went out the door. Then I guess I just, like I said, I was kind of, I was kind of like wayward in the fact of like, what am I going to do with my life? Because I thought it was going to be criminal justice. I thought I was going to do something in that field. And then when I got to college, this is the early 90s. There's no internet. And I had to take a criminal investigation class, and you get a big textbook of crime. Oh, it was crime scene investigation. And these are a lot of like full color photographs of crime scenes. And I was like, man, I don't know if I want to see this for the rest of my life. You're talking about like, you have to like study these pictures of like dead people.
Yeah.
Like, and not just dead people who died peacefully in their bed. No, people who got murdered and they got in a horrific accident at work. And it's like, was it intentional? Like I was like, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life. So that went out the door really quick in my late teens, because I thought I was going to do that. And then I was like, no, I don't want to see this for the rest of my life. That's not how I grow. So, then I got married and we had kids and things. Like I said, I was working. I worked in construction for a while and I didn't like it, but it put money in the pocket and food on the table. And then, like I said, church, Sunday school kind of infected me with this idea that maybe you could teach.
So when did you start teaching in Sunday school? How old were you?
34, 35.
And then you were like, oh, I want to teach.
Yeah. Yeah, because I got a lot of positive feedback. I got a lot of positive feedback from, and I was doing adult classes, I was doing kids and stuff. So I got a lot of positive feedback from all the people that I was quote unquote teaching at the time. And I felt weird because I felt like really ill-equipped, because I would ask like a lot of questions, but I guess in hindsight, I was doing the Socrative method where I was asking questions and, but yeah, I got a lot of positive feedback, and I thought like maybe God wants me to get into teaching, and I prayed about it. And Mr. King, we were doing a visitation one Wednesday, and I told him, hey, I think God's telling me I should get into teaching. He says, well, you got to get your degree. I'll never forget, because it was raining that day and we're waiting for someone to get home. I said, maybe God doesn't mean that, because I was like, I don't want to go back to school. But then, long story short, I did, and here I am.
I'm glad.
Thank you.
Okay, now this is like less deep. What's
Okay.
your favorite candy?
I'm going to have to say Reese's Pieces or Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, but not the mini cups, because the chocolate sticks to the wrapper and I can't stand it. It's got to be either a full-size Reese's Peanut Butter Cup or the Reese's Pieces. The mini cups, I'm not saying they're not good, but it bothers me that I can't get all the chocolate. I have to suck the paper, so I don't like this. So some sort of Reese's Peanut Butter candy.
I agree.
Cool.
And what's your opinion on candy corn?
I like it. It's cool. I mean, I don't obsess over it. But I certainly like it, but I don't obsess over it either. It's like, it's there, I'll eat it.
Okay, now healthier. What's your favorite fruit or vegetable?
Granny Smith apples is my favorite fruit. It's a sour green apple. And once I had those, like no other apple would do it, because the sour aspect of it. I don't know, man. It's not that I don't like other apples or things like that, but it's like
that one beats them
yeah.
all.
It's like everything's too plain. All the other apples are too plain now. Once you've had that that sour of a taste. So that's my fruit. My favorite vegetable is asparagus.
I don't like asparagus.
Really?
No.
Oh, what do you like then?
Like broccoli, probably. It's probably my favorite vegetable.
Okay, so I don't like broccoli. I'll eat the stem part of broccoli, but not the leafy part. And the asparagus aspect, or the leafy part of the asparagus doesn't bother me, whereas the leafy part of the broccoli I don't like. So
No, I'll eat the leafy part of the asparagus, but I won't eat the bottom of it.
I'll eat the bottom part of the broccoli, but not the leaf. So that's funny that we're opposite that way.
What about tomatoes? What do you think they are?
Okay, well, they're fruit, and then I'll eat them as an addition to something. So I like them diced. I like them on tacos, salsa. There can be chunks of it in the salsa, and I'll eat it. I like ketchup. I'll eat tomato sauce, but I don't like chunks of tomato in my spaghetti sauce.
Yeah, me either.
For whatever reason, I do not like warm tomato chunks. I cannot stand them. But everything else is fine. But I won't eat them raw. Like,
you won't eat a tomato as a whole?
No. I mean, not as an apple. My daughter will eat it.
An apple.
No.
I will eat a tomato as an apple.
So will my daughter, and that, I mean, I don't know why, it just doesn't appeal to me. But she'll eat them, like, and the little ones we were saying, like those little those little tiny apples, or those tomatoes.
Yeah,
she eats them like candy.
Like I would too. They're really good. So, if you were a celebrity, what would you want to be famous for?
Famous for? I don't know. I'd have to think. I think being an actor would be cool. There's certain things that like that'd be cool to be in Star Wars, like something like that. So I don't know, like an actor in like Star Wars or something like that, or even an extra. I would
just one of the people walking in the background.
Yeah, for sure. So probably something like that.
All right. And last question: what is the weirdest, best, funniest thing that's ever happened to you in a classroom? Just something that was so stood out.
I can't remember whose class it was. It was when you guys were in 6th grade. And I can't remember who it was. They were talking about L or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but all I know is that they were saying, and they were struggling to say what they were going to say. And I think it was Alejandro or somebody in your class says, "Man, you need to take this L." And it just caught me off guard. And it's not good to laugh at that kind of stuff when kids are like roasting each other in class as a teacher. And it was one of those moments it caught me off guard. And I was like, dude, that was so funny. This kid literally like wrecked this other kid. And then that was it. Like, I was like, man, that's not nice, but I can't.
Don't know how to react.
And I was it's like once the teacher laughs, it's cat's out of the bag. So that doesn't happen too often, but every once in a while, a kid will say a zinger, and it just catches me off guard, and I'm like, oof, I was so raw, and because the kid was literally trying to say something with an L, and says, "Man, you need to take this L," and I was just like, wow. So that one stands out because I literally laughed at that one. And as teachers, we're not supposed to laugh. We're supposed to correct. And that time, they got me.
All right. So that's it. And this was the very first episode of Just Because. Special thanks to Mr. Jolly for joining us today. And tune in next time to get to know another teacher. Only here on Just Because.
Bye.